Why must I slurp my coffee every time?
It's for the tannins, right?
It's for the taste buds.
Yeah.
I'm too used to my job. I'm too used to my job of constantly tasting coffee.
Yep.
I'm basically notorious for basically penning down every single coffee notes at my job. I know it better than anyone that works up at the front.
Yeah.
But that's then. This is now. And somebody is going to be waiting for me in the bathroom with a knife going...
Really? Does that happen to you often?
Not really. I just had no way to segue into the topic we're going into today.
What is our topic, I wonder?
Indeed. Anyway, what's going on, guys? This is Donald Kaczynski back once again, and with me, as always, is Hannah Kubiak, my partner in crime, the one with all of the
clink, clink.
The best stories. Clink clink.
No.
I provide the coffee. Hannah provides all of the wisdom.
Oh goodness. I just show up here.
You're a wealth of knowledge, okay? I value your opinion very highly.
Oh, shucks.
And this is the General Geekery Podcast, the podcast where we geek out about all things there are to geek about in this world today.
Tables. Let's talk about tables.
They're so sturdy.
Yep.
They help us read books. We prepare our meals on them. Sometimes we can cook meals.
They can be used as a weapon if necessary.
Ooh, that's true. If wrestling has taught me anything, it can be used as a weapon.
Anything can be used as a weapon.
Anything.
That's what the Bourne Identity taught me.
If Toy Story 2, the movie, taught me anything, use your head.
Yep.
But I don't want to use my head.
Use your friends as weapons.
That's true. I say
your cat at a person.
No, not okay. Not maybe not the cat. Maybe not the cat. We don't want to hurt Kefka. We don't want to hurt Kefka.
No.
But all right. So today is going to be a very interesting topic because me and Hannah are both very passionate about this. I'm passionate about film in general, but we're going to be looking at a specific director today. We haven't really done like a specific director episode for
I want to
yet.
start doing more director spotlights because I think those are really cool.
All right, that might be the title of the episode, Director Spotlight. But today we're going to be talking about probably one of the most influential directors of the 20th century, Sir Alfred Hitchcock.
Is he a sir?
He was knighted 6 months before his death.
Oh,
I actually
squeaked by just there.
He got in there.
Nice.
We got him. The master of suspense, as he is oftenly called. Probably.
Remember, the next scream you hear might be your own.
Indeed. Had a large run of films that are considered classics. Had a television show called Alfred Hitchcock Presents, with many different shorts in between all that.
Yeah.
Has won several awards for many of his films, and one film in particular is considered possibly the greatest horror film of all time. But more on that when we get to that specific one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we should probably state how we first came across Hitchcock.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
So, I first came across, this is going to sound really weird, but I didn't get to see an Alfred Hitchcock film until I was in high school. Before then, I had only heard him by name and everything like that, and this is actually going to sound kind of stupid coming from me, but there was an episode of the Fox sitcom That 70s Show. It was a Halloween themed, and all of the main plot points of the film were based off of stuff from Hitchcock films. So Vertigo, Dial M for Murder, The Birds, all that were basically based off of Hitchcock stuff. And they mentioned him in there, and I'm like, I wonder how that was. So and one of the first films I saw was Vertigo.
Oh, okay.
And the second one, well, that's the obvious one, but Vertigo was my first foray into Hitchcock.
Oh, okay.
So, and I love the writing, the dialogue, just the way he stylizes the shots he's in and makes the most out of dialogue and holding on to a frame.
Yeah, Vertigo was impeccably filmed. There's so many parallels and themes, and just the way that the thing is shot, that is just sort of, it's a very eerie show. There's or not show, movie.
Right.
But when you watch it, you can kind of tell there's something off a little bit.
Which you can kind of relate to several of his films in different aspects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, when I was in college, I wrote a short analysis of Vertigo about the the way that all of the women in this guy's life are depicted based on the portrait in the gallery that he follows Madeline to.
Ah.
You know, the portrait of the girl she has the bouquet and the necklace and her hair done in a certain way, and it's just sort of like this yeah, I don't know. He starts to lose his grip on what's real and what isn't.
Yeah, there's a lot to take in with Hitchcock films. Like, honestly, to like really get like a full thing, it takes like multiple viewings to like nail down certain aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, let me just look here really quick.
Sure.
What was your impression of Vertigo? Like, what? It was your first movie that you saw.
Yeah, it was the first movie that I saw from Hitchcock. So, from my first initial viewing, this came to me like around a time like when I wasn't really into film like I am now. Mm-hmm. So, like, I kind of like was going in with like a little bit more of like a cynical mind, just like boring, everything like that. Like, this is coming from a high school brain that was sleeping at To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, okay.
And I want to punch 16-year-old me in the face for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, and I was just watching through this, and like I'm seeing all these things, all of it taking place, and it was like the final part where like at the end of the film when when everything happens and the woman accidentally trips, and like we he's on the ledge like looking down, and like we don't know if he jumped, did he? I don't
think he did.
I don't think he did, but we don't like. It was kind of left ambiguous. I was expecting him to jump, but at the same time, I'm like, I think that's the wonder there. It was really like one of the first films that made me think like critically about certain things, and I'm like, oh, I've never experienced this kind of thing with a movie before. This is kind of nice.
Yeah. The whole thing about the portrait and how different people appear. Basically, this guy, he's asked by a friend to watch his friend's wife and follow her and see what's going on with her, because for some reason the husband thinks that she's possessed or something by this woman Carlotta.
Right.
Because she's started to do her hair the way that Carlotta does, and she's going to visit Carlotta's grave, and she wears Carlotta's necklace, and she goes to the museum to look at the portrait of Carlotta, and like he describes these insane spells that she has where she wants to like kill herself in the way that Carlotta did and all this stuff. And the main character, played by Jimmy Stewart, gets sort of obsessed with this idea and of what is going to happen. And he actually ends up falling in love with this woman, with Madeline,
right,
who is the friend's wife. And basically, he isn't able to save her. Like, the possession takes hold, and she goes and jumps off of this building. And he kind of remains obsessed with her, and he finds this other girl who looks kind of like her. And there's more to that, but we'll skip over it for those who want to see it. But he finds a girl who kind of looks like Madeline, and he starts to make her into Madeline. He has her dye her hair and put it up in a certain way and wear the clothes that she wore and everything, and just having this insane ideal of what she has to be like, of this woman that he lost.
Yeah.
And just what is real and what isn't is a big part of that.
A lot of common themes that follow in a lot of Hitchcock's works. One, obviously, obsession.
Mm-hmm. Obsession, definitely.
Like obsession, voyeurism, and because he has done a lot of risque work that was ahead of its time.
Yep.
That stuff with Madeline, the Madeline thing from Vertigo, the infamous scene from Psycho, which we'll get into in a little bit. Yep. But there's also all this sense of mystery and intrigue, because you don't know certain aspects of what happened until they happen.
Yeah.
And it constantly keeps you guessing.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he's called the Master of Suspense, and that's why.
And there's sort of that. There's always sort of a little through line of insanity almost in a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Especially in Vertigo, people say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that's definitely very prominent in Vertigo.
Well, yeah, of course that's happening, because he's basically making that woman into the same image of the woman he lost.
Yeah, exactly. And then her being possessed by Carlotta, that whole thing is also a repetition, whereas Carlotta's life ended tragically, and now she's back to repeat it with this other woman, and then when that succeeds, he wants to create her again in somebody else. And there's his friend, Midge, who he doesn't love in that way, but she is obsessed with him, and she tries to make herself into Madeline so that he'll love her, becoming something that she's not, to basically cater to his obsession. Basically, yeah. Yeah. And just how laser focused you can be because of that. And that's kind of exemplified in his vertigo that he has, his fear of heights. Yeah. When he gets too high off the ground, it just sort of that's all you can focus on, is just it zooms, the vertigo zoom and everything. Ugh, it's ridiculous.
So, taking off of that though, and with all those elements, would you say that Hitchcock was probably one of the earliest directors to really push the envelope on what's acceptable to be shown in cinema?
I don't know. I don't know enough about that. Well, the history of things, I'm not an expert on. I'm more of a themes kind of person, I suppose. True. I can understand that. Yeah.
Because I was thinking about this in my mind, when I was doing my little research for the topic, because I was thinking in the back of my mind, was Hitchcock one of the earlier influences for this? Because during Hitchcock's time, when he was just starting off in Hollywood and getting his foot in the door with the film, you had such films go by that it was nearing the end of the silent film era and going in more into sound and everything, and then you had films that tackled proper issues and things like that. You had things Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz, in the dress and everything like that, and a lot of them were kind of family focused, but also adult oriented, and tackled themes and issues that were the norm. Yeah. But then you look at most of Hitchcock's filmography and a lot of the stuff that he's notable for, like Vertigo, Dial M for Murder, North by Northwest, and even Psycho, where he was pushing it looked like he was pushing the envelope on what was socially acceptable to be shown.
Okay, so kind of, do you mean showing the disorder of
showing
people's minds,
showing disorder of stuff, like the obsession with things like that. Like, normally stuff that would be taboo on it, including the showing of, like, more skin and, like, vulnerability and nudity with, like, men and women.
Yeah, and I do know that Psycho was the first movie ever to have the word transvestite in it.
I forgot about that fact.
Yeah.
I honestly forgot about that
some
fact.
sort of thing, I don't remember. There was some sort of thing about it where they're like, you can't do that. But, I don't know.
Yeah, it was a big hullabaloo around Psycho in general. Speaking of which,
shall we talk about Psycho?
Let's talk about Psycho. I know we've wanted to talk about Psycho for several episodes, so you know what? Let's get it all out. We're talking about Psycho now.
This was my first experience of Hitchcock, to be honest with you.
And honestly, it's probably like one of the best, like, rawest examples of Hitchcock's work. Like, it's considered his magnum opus. Although it really wasn't when it was released. This is one of those cases where basically the film got better over the course of time.
Yep.
Almost. Kind of similar to how Stanley Kubrick's Shining was.
Yeah.
So...
like a fine wine.
So for those not familiar with Psycho, spoiler alert.
Yep. Major spoiler alert.
Major.
We tip our hats
major
to him.
Spoiler alert. So the story follows the story follows, like, the inner psyche. Well, basically the action surrounding the mystery of a character of Norman Bates and his mother.
Yep.
Of the Bates Motel.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, you wouldn't even know if the film started off that way if you only saw, like, the first, like, third. Because that doesn't happen until, like, a third of the way in when the infamous shower scene happens.
Yeah.
Because it starts off kind of tame, basically. Well, tame in a way of a woman stealing money from her job from a bank.
Yep.
And she's on the run. Basically, police are following. It starts off almost like a robbery chase film.
Yeah.
But then you get to the Bates Motel and you meet Norman, the actor who plays Norman Bates.
Amazing. Yeah.
One of the most terrifying performances.
Yeah. When I saw this movie, I was on his side the whole time. I was like, oh, this poor sweet guy with his mother tormenting him and just, like, I was sort of thinking to myself, man, he never had a chance. He's so secluded and lonely. And
well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Yeah.
That line gets me every time.
I know. And I love that scene when he brings her some dinner. He brings her a sandwich because she arrives late at the motel.
Right.
And he says, why don't you come up to the house for dinner? And then when she's putting her things away over the rain from the spooky house behind the motel, she hears the mother saying, no, you can't have this woman over, and all this stuff. And then he comes back kind of sheepishly, and he's like, well, I brought you some lunch. My mother is very sick, and she doesn't know what she's saying, but here's some lunch, and I'll sit with you while you eat it. And they're in the room with all of his taxidermied birds and everything. And
yeah, like, it seems a little off-putting, but at the same time, like... like...
No, it's such an interesting conversation that they have, and it seems like for two people who just met, they wouldn't be... And
it ultimately changes her mind about, all this stuff, and then...
Yeah.
And then the real meat of the film happens. It takes such a complete 180.
Yeah. It's kind of... And let me see. I think this conversation actually helps us understand what's going on.
Sure.
So I'm trying to find the script of it or something.
Sure. While you look for that, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about this because, like, a lot, like, when this film was originally, like, advertised and released, and this is probably, like, one of my favorite, like, little bits of, like, Hitchcock's work. There was a 6.5 minute theatrical trailer for this film that basically showed no footage of the film itself. It was basically 6.5 minutes of, I think it was a continuous shot of basically Hitchcock going through the set of the Bates Motel.
Yeah.
and describing the events that happened.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing scary is shown. Like,
yeah.
Nothing's ever shown.
Mm-hmm.
Like you hear what ends up becoming like the infamous Psycho theme, but you don't see anything that happens that pertains to it.
Yeah.
Which I would love to go back in time and see that original theatrical trailer for people who had not seen Psycho yet, and then see the reactions of everyone in the audience watching Psycho for the first time. Kind of like how today on YouTube they'll have like audio clips of audience reactions for the first time to like big blockbuster films.
Yeah.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
Like, I love watching people's reactions to like classic films like that. Like, I'm a person who grins from ear to ear watching little kids' reactions the first time to the big to the big plot bomb that was The Empire Strikes Back in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, yeah.
So yeah, there's that.
Oh man.
Did you find the script?
I did. I found it, and I don't know. I guess. So yeah, he brings her back into the parlor where all of his taxidermied birds are, and there's a weird sort of through line kind of about birds, and the girl's name is Marion Crane and stuff as well. And so you kind of get this idea that he is attracted to her and everything, because when she's eating, he says, "You eat like a bird."
Oh my god,
and he says, "I don't know anything about birds. My hobby is stuffing things, taxidermy, and I guess I'd just rather stuff birds because I hate the look of beasts when they're stuffed, foxes and chimps, but I think of birds look well stuffed because they're rather passive to begin with, most of them."
Dang.
And he's just talking about his taxidermy and everything, and he's talking about it as a hobby. It's not really a hobby. A hobby is supposed to pass the time, not fill it. And she asks, "Is your time so empty?" "Oh no, I run the office, tend the cabins and grounds, do little chores for Mother, the ones she allows I might be capable of doing." She asks, "Do you go out with friends?" "Friends? Who needs friends? A boy's best friend is his mother."
That line gets me every time.
Yeah. And, yeah, he's just, "You know what I think? I think we're all in our private traps, clamped in them, and none of us can ever climb out. We scratch and claw, but only at the air, only at each other, and for all of it, we never budge an inch." And, he says, "I was born in my trap. I don't mind it anymore." Yeah. He's talking about his mother. He's like, sometimes when, like, he's trapped with her, basically, his sick old mother. "Sometimes when she talks that way to me, I'd like to curse her out and leave her forever, or at least defy her. But I couldn't. She's ill. She had to raise me all by herself, and it must have been a strain." All this stuff.
And hard to believe we actually get to see a bit of that in a rebooted TV series based on it.
Yeah. And just, she's talking about, "Would you put her someplace?" And he's like, "An institution? A madhouse? People always call a madhouse someplace. Put her in someplace. And what do you mean about you meant well? People always mean well." And just sort of like, there's this, you can tell there's something kind of off about him, where he hates and loves his mother. He feels trapped by his mother, but he feels like he has to take care of her, and you just get sort of this, that there's this weird imbalance between them, that he is attracted to this woman, and Marion, but his mother wouldn't allow it. She like curses him out when he goes up to the house and asks if she can come over for dinner, and it's just sort of this jealousy and this weird, almost Oedipal connection kind of thing,
Yeah, it's...
Well, not... Yeah, a little bit. Where it's kind of... They're too close for it to be...
Yeah.
They're not like a normal mother and son.
Right. like
Marion says in here something about Norman says she had nobody after my dad died, and she says, well, she had you, and he says, a son is a poor substitute for a lover. She's like, good grief. Like, they have no one but each other, and it gets all, like...
Pretty much, yeah.
To be everyone for each other is hard. Yeah.
Like...
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, like, we were, like, the recording was still going. I was like, oh my god, this is so good. Like, I can probably just talk about the character of Norman Bates for a while. Like, he is probably the biggest magnet of that film. Like...
Yeah.
Your attention is so entrenched on everything he does, and you can't figure it out.
Yeah, Anthony Perkins did a wonderful job.
Absolutely. It's like an unsolvable Rubik's cube almost.
Yeah.
Like, you see the pieces there, but at the same time, like it's also varied and wild, and it's unpredictable.
Yeah. Shall we speaking of wild and unpredictable, shall we talk about the famous scene in the middle of the movie here?
Yeah, all right, here we go. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! All right, so at the end of all that conversation, like, and it starts off with him peeking in on her.
Yeah.
Remember how I said, like, the voyeurism and what was, like, acceptable of, like, film? This was kind of like a main thing that I was really talking about because
he has a little peephole in the parlor behind a picture.
Basically perversion. And like, at that time, if you were continuously looking at it, like, you were infected with the perversion. This is according to, like, Hopkins, not Hopkins. No, what am I saying anymore? Hitchcock's words, not mine. And you see the entire thing go out. She undresses. No nudity is shown as far as I can remember. Thank God.
No.
She gets in the shower. She starts showering, and then all of a sudden, from out of the corner in a shadowy distance, knife brandished in hand.
Yep. That music, the what is it? Violins, strings, just shrieking. Basically,
something string. Something string. Like, I believe it's violin. Basically, like, and it's weird. We it's hard to make out.
Yeah.
With, like, the black and white imaging and, like, just the shading, everything, and how it was shot. Like, you don't see the face of the attacker.
Yeah.
We assume it's the mother.
Yeah.
We assume it's the mother.
It is the mother.
It is the mother, of course.
Yeah.
Like all signs point to her.
Yeah, and she stabs this Marion in the shower, leaves her there, and then a while later,
Norman finds her.
And he covers up the murder.
He covers
to protect his mother.
He covers up the murder, gets rid of the body, disposes of the car in a lake.
Sinks it into the swamp.
With all the $40,000 that was in there that she stole.
Yeah, I know.
I could have paid off my student debt.
Oh gosh.
I look at films and TV like that anymore. I'm like, no.
The money.
Give the money to us.
Yeah.
We can pay off all of our debts and everything like that, and become productive members of society, and not having to worry about all of our traumas.
I mean, I would still worry about... No.
You know what? That's fair. There's too much to worry about in this world.
There's always something to worry about, my friend. But yeah, then the second half of the movie is basically... It's basically Marion's sister.
Yeah.
And Marion's boyfriend.
Fiancé, boyfriend,
trying to track Marion down.
It becomes this giant, like... It becomes like a giant mystery of, like, cat and mouse, and, like...
All signs point to the motel.
It all points to the motel. But, like, and it's like, okay, like, it's all gonna come to a head and all that, but you don't know the events that are going to play out because so much mystery surrounds the Bates family.
Yep. And so we, as an audience at that time, know that it was the mother and know that Norman covered it up. And... There's basically a private detective comes to see what's going on.
He was following Marion, like, when she originally took the money. So he's been following her for a while.
Yeah, and there's
And eventually he gets axed.
Or stabbed, yeah. It's a knife.
Well, figure of speech.
Oh, okay. He gets knifed!
With a knife!
Yep. But yeah, Mother ends up killing the detective as well.
Yep. And that gets them suspicious, so they go to the hotel themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And
this is where everything starts to unravel.
Yeah. And, gosh.
That,
like there's this scene where we see Norman go and get his mother, and it's like a weird shot from above, kind of, where you see him like come out of the bedroom and down the stairs carrying her in his arms, and he says, "Oh, you're going to be safe. I'm going to hide you in the fruit cellar." And she's saying like, "No, I'm not going into the fruit cellar." And you think I'm fruity, huh?
It's so weird.
One of my favorite lines from the entire movie.
Good.
You think I'm fruity, huh? And so he hides her in the fruit cellar. And Marion's sister, while Norman is gone somewhere, Marion's sister basically thinks they've talked to Norman and they know that his mother is living in the house and that she is like sick or feeble or something.
Right.
But the sister is convinced. She says, "I think the mother probably knows something. I'm sure she does. I need to go and talk to her." So she sneaks to the house while Norman is gone and just she goes through the house, and it's just this very quiet, slow sequence of her just exploring all the rooms, and there's a little like childhood bedroom of Norman's.
There's that suspense coming in.
Yeah. She goes down to the fruit cellar and she like opens the door and she sees the little old lady sitting with her back to the door in the chair under this light bulb.
And then it all comes to a head.
Yep.
That entire suspense build up. Like like even with a little shock on the side with like the fiance getting knocked out.
Yeah.
Like all comes to a head.
Yeah.
The cellar, the slow approach, the turning of the head, and all of a sudden, it's a mummified corpse.
Yep. Oh gosh.
It's just, huh?
Yeah. And didn't then right after that,
immediately after that,
she like sees the corpse. She turns around, and in the doorway is the mother, like in her dress and her shawl and her gray hair with a knife,
and you're just like, what's going on? And you're like, what's going on in that moment? And then at the same time, the fiance managed to regain consciousness and followed him, subdue, and you find out it's Norman.
Yeah, it's Norman dressed as his mother.
And then the entire scene afterwards.
Yeah.
Where they're at the police station with the psychiatrist, and they basically explain everything with Norman and everything like that. Yeah. The final shot of Norman with the blanket on him.
Oh, gosh.
With Mother voicing over and the fly on his hand. Ah!
Yeah. But, okay, so now I want to talk a little bit more about Anthony Perkins and how he played both those. There's this one, when you watch the movie again, you can tell there are points when he looks like Norman.
Right.
But he's not Norman. He's Mother. Like, when somebody, I think the police officer or the private detective comes to the motel and he says, I'm looking for a girl, and Norman is like, all sheepish with his hands in his pockets. He's like, oh yes, of course. I mean, you can look at the register if you want, but I haven't seen her anyone by that name come through here. Mm-hmm. And the guy looks at the book, and then as the private investigator is walking away, Norman's face just like changes. Mm-hmm. This sort of like, it's almost bird-like. He's like eating sunflower seeds or something, or he's chewing something, and he's just looking at he's just watching the man go, and like his head is cocked.
It's just like tilting.
He has this sort of like harshness in his eyes. Like, how does he make like Norman is so like docile and kind of self-effacing, and then there's like a moment where it just switches over, and Mother is just so shrewd and like some sort of bird of prey kind of thing. Such a cool moment.
And I think that for that with this movie in particular really comes like the brilliance of Hitchcock's film is that they are rewatchable with purpose.
Yeah.
Like rewatchability, like we always rewatch movies in order to relive stuff like that. With Hitchcock's films, like with the mystery behind them and like trying to follow things up, and with the rewatchability, you go back and you notice those small moments like that that lead to that, where it gives it away on that, and it's just like, oh, this is what that meant. This is what that thing meant. Like, so this conversation was leading up to this moment, and this is why he explained it this way.
Yeah.
You start to connect the dots.
Yeah.
It's probably some of the best storytelling in cinema when you're able to weave that web that intricately with just some certain lines of dialogue, facial expressions being as subtle as they can be, and especially with Perkins being Norman Bates, like no one else could have delivered that the way he could have.
Yeah.
I honestly can't think of anyone else.
Yeah. I wanna read the mother monologue.
The one at the end?
Yeah. Basically, the whole scene is like Norman has just completely become mother now.
Yeah.
Because basically what happened, I think, is that they were together for so long, Mother and Norman, and it was just the two of them. And then she met a man. I think so, yeah. And Norman killed them both or something.
I think it was because he felt like
he felt threatened by this man.
He felt threatened, and he believed like she was being taken away from him.
Yeah, because she would seclude him from all the women that he liked. She'd always sabotage him. The gall of her to get herself somebody else. So yeah, but then his mind couldn't take the fact that he had killed his mother, so he tried to keep her with him. Like, he used his taxidermy equipment to mummify her body, to keep her remains, keep her with him, and that wasn't even enough. So he started to sort of like dress in her clothes and talk in her voice.
And that's what created the mother personality.
Yeah.
In his, like the strangest of split personalities were basically the mother eventually became the dominant personality.
Yeah, the mother became... Yeah, there's this... the guy who was investigating this stuff. So somebody asks, why was he dressed like that? And there's this person, he says, he's a transvestite. And then the guy says, no, not exactly.
Oh, man.
A man who dresses in woman's clothing in order to achieve a sexual change or satisfaction is a transvestite. But in Norman's case, he was simply doing everything possible to keep alive the illusion of his mother being alive. And whenever reality came too close, when danger or desire threatened that illusion, he'd dress up, even to a cheap wig he'd bought. He'd walk around the house, sit in her chair, speak in her voice. He tried to be his mother, and now he is. That's what I meant to say when I said I got the story from his mother. She thinks Norman has been taken away because of his crimes. She insists she did nothing, that Norman committed all the murders just to keep her from being discovered. She even smiled a bit coquettishly as she said it. Of course, she feels bad about it, but also somewhat relieved to be, as she put it, free of Norman at last.
Right.
When the mind houses two personalities, there is always a battle. In Norman's case, the battle is over, and the dominant personality has won. So he's just mother now. And so you get this scene where you see Norman sitting in jail, or in the asylum or whatever. And it's just the actor sitting there. It's almost one continuous shot of just the camera getting closer and closer, and you hear a mother's voice. And she says, "It's sad when a mother has to speak the words that condemn her own son. But I couldn't allow them to think that I would commit murder. They'll put him away now, as I should have years ago. He was always bad, and in the end he intended to tell them I killed those girls and that man, and if I could do anything except sit and stare like one of his stuffed birds. Well, they know I can't even move a finger, and I won't. I'll just sit here and be quiet, just in case they do suspect me. And then there's the fly.
Yep.
They're probably watching me. Well, let them. Let them see what kind of a person I am. I'm not going to swat that fly. I hope they are watching. They'll see, and they'll know, and they'll say why she wouldn't even harm a fly.
And with that slow grin on its face
man.
that grows, and that's the final image you see of the film, and it's just...
Yeah, he's completely mother at that point.
One
Such a weird movie.
One of the best horror films. Mm-hmm. And I consider it a horror film.
Yep.
It is one of the greatest suspense horror films ever made.
Yeah.
Like...
Oh, so good.
I want to watch it again now.
Yeah. Me too, yeah. Some other awesome Hitchcock films. Rear Window.
Oh, okay. That one I actually have not seen.
Oh, okay. It's basically this guy he was a photographer, and he got hit by a car while he was taking a picture at a race car race.
Okay.
So he has a broken leg, and he's sequestered in his apartment, can't go anywhere, and he gets really bored and starts watching all his neighbors, and he sees all these things with his binoculars that makes him think that one of his neighbors has murdered his wife. One of his neighbors has murdered his own wife, the neighbor.
That's right. I heard about this one.
Yeah, so it's about him trying to figure out what's going on and trying to convince people that this guy's wife has been murdered. This is where
the obsession and voyeurism,
obsession and just watching things you shouldn't be watching. Yeah.
This is where that aspect comes in. I remember the setup for this film, and I know others have copied it and everything like that. I have not seen the original though.
Have you seen Rope?
Which one was Rope again?
Rope is the one where these young men kill one of their friends, and they put him in a chest and lay out a dinner party on the chest and have friends over.
Oh my God.
To experience the thrill of having committed a crime and having people being so near to it and not suspecting.
That's so messed up.
Yeah. Almost like the Titus Andronicus dinner.
Yeah.
Where it's like, here's the dinner, and it's so tasty. Psych! It's your family in those pies, fools. No, yeah, kind of like that. So, yeah. And it's about this guy who starts to suspect that they killed the guy and trying to figure out what happened and why. And this is a movie that was shot. It was shot in 3 or 4 continuous shots. There's only 3 or 4 cuts in it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It was almost shot as though it were a play. And it might actually be a play. I'm not sure. I know that Dial M for Murder was a play.
Right. I know that one was.
Notorious. Have you ever seen Notorious?
That one I have not seen.
Yeah.
Here's some of the Hitchcock films I have seen.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen Saboteur.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen parts of Dial M for Murder.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen North by Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
Psycho I've seen. I mentioned I saw Vertigo. Have not watched Birds.
I watched The Birds. That's one of the ones that I found kind of underwhelming.
Yeah, that one's weird.
Because there's a lot of sort of symbolism and cool stuff going on visually and thematically in a lot of Hitchcock's movies, but The Birds it was just people getting attacked by birds for some reason. It kind of... Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I'd have to watch it again just to see what the hype is about it.
Yeah, I don't know why, but for some reason, for me, I feel like The Birds is the rare miss in Hitchcock's work. Because every director has highs and lows.
Yep.
But it's weird with Hitchcock because he has a lot of films that are considered some of the greatest films ever made. Mm-hmm. Like Psycho, North by Northwest, things like that. But Birds, I'm just like, huh?
Yeah. Which is a real shame, because I love bird imagery.
Right.
It's one of my favorite symbolisms.
I mean, the taxidermy birds in Psycho.
Yep. And that, yeah. And how bird-like Mrs. Bates was.
Oh, God. She was like a crow.
Yeah, like an old crow. Yeah. But Notorious, this movie with Ingrid Bergman, and I think Claude Rains.
Okay.
Where basically she plays the daughter of this communist who is killed, and then she didn't really agree with her father's ideology and everything, and so she becomes a spy for people who suspect this other guy of being a communist.
Ooh.
And so because she has all those connections because of her father, they think that she's one of them. So she goes and gets close to this guy, Claude Rains, to try and expose him. And he ends up asking her to marry him. And she does it to get close to him.
Oh,
to expose him. Yeah. And it's basically about her living in his house and collecting all these clues, also pretending to, like, be his loyal wife and everything. And it's about... And he begins to suspect her and discovers what she's doing, and just what he does in response to that is ridiculous.
I gotta watch this one.
Yeah, it's so good.
Wow, how have I not seen this one?
I think Cary Grant is in it too. He's in a couple. He's one of those ones who's in a lot of a lot of Hitchcock movies.
Like, directors usually have, like, a lot of, like, actors that they usually lean on. I know Quentin Tarantino usually goes to Samuel L. Jackson for a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. For Martin Scorsese, it was always Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro, and now Leonardo DiCaprio. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, yeah, Hitchcock, I'm sure Hitchcock has no exception to that.
Yeah. Let me see here. Oh, it's Nazis. It's not communists. In order to help bring Nazis to justice, U.S. government agent T.R. Devlin, played by Cary Grant, recruits Alicia Huberman, Ingrid Bergman, the American daughter of a convicted German war criminal, as a spy. Yeah.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
Nazis, okay.
Nazi!
Yeah.
Okay, I was wondering why that setup sounded familiar.
Yeah, no, that's Nazis.
But I haven't seen it. Wow, I need to go back and watch a lot more stuff.
It's good.
Watch a lot more stuff.
Ingrid Bergman. Oh, she's lovely.
I bet. Like, oh man.
Yeah. Let me see here.
God, I want to watch all this now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
Whew.
So, we're getting pretty close to time.
Mm-hmm.
So, to wrap up, final thoughts on Hitchcock. I know we talked a lot about the movies and everything like that, but Anna.
Yeah.
So I pose this question: how would you rank for yourself? How would you rank Hitchcock in your love of movies and stuff? Like, where does he rank for you in terms of what aspects you like about movies?
He was the director that he was the director that wanted me to make, he made me want to make movies, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, watching his movies and just the attention to detail in all this stuff, I thought, well, this is more than just... This is more than just, I don't know. Gosh,
it's more than just something mindless.
Yeah, it's more than just a mindless thing to keep your mind occupied. He made movies that gave me something to think about, I guess.
Yeah.
And just, I loved it. I want to make movies and stuff like that. So that kind of also segued into my wanting to do theater as well, because imagery and themes and through lines and things are a big thing in theater. But yeah, he was the first director that I got interested in as a director. A lot of the time we get interested in movies. We're like, oh, I want to see this movie because it has an actor that I know in it. But like these movies, I say, oh, it was directed by so-and-so. I'm going to watch that. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hitchcock, for me, like I had already, like, knew about films with, like, certain stars and everything like that. Like, I had that knowledge going into it. Hitchcock was really, like, one of the first directors to have me think to myself, I'm like, I need to look at, like, some of the background aspects and, like, pay attention to certain things. He made me realize that movies, and by further extensions, like, other visual medias like TV and all that, have important details and can carry significance in even the smallest minute details. Like I've said before on episodes of the podcast, where in theater and like other visual forms of media, where I appreciate like the small subtle movements and motions because they can carry a lot of weight. Yeah,
every movement should have
a purpose. Hitchcock was really the person who made me realize that importance.
Yeah.
And so he helped me gain like an appreciation for purpose in media.
Yeah.
So honestly, like his films should really be viewed like at one point in your life.
Absolutely.
So, and my final question before we sign off. I usually have this weird thing with like films and like directors like lately, where I try to differentiate at what point in a person's life should they watch like a specific film or director. In a person's life, where should someone watch their first Hitchcock film?
It depends on which one it is, to be honest.
True. But in what age group? Like high school, college?
I don't know. I only know my own experience. I was in middle school when I watched Psycho.
That's okay. That's actually nice though, because at that early, like, that's when like your brain is still forming, like you're still a young mind, like forming like your own like identity and ideals and everything like that. And when you learn a lesson like that about critical thinking, and like I said, I first watched Vertigo when I was in high school.
Right. Yeah.
So that's when my critical thinking thing came in. So I think like it's a perfect film to watch like when you're in like late middle school, high school.
I think it should become part of the first grade curriculum in all of our schools.
In first grade? Oh, good God. Oh, my God.
Mom, what's the transvestite?
Oh, my God. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Okay, we can leave it off on that. Oh, my God.
Oh, man.
I'm just imagining right now, like, a little, like...
We should not shelter our youth. Not at all.
Like, no. I'm just imagining, I'm imagining right now a first grade classroom having a rainy day right now, and they're just sitting in watching a movie during the actual recess period instead of watching, this Barney video today. We're going to show you a film called Psycho.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my God!
Mother, I want to take up taxidermy.
Oh, good!
If I might. You know, the chemicals are the only thing that costs anything.
Oh, no.
I need a hobby that takes up my time but doesn't fill it.
Oh, my God. Okay,
I'm going to do birds.
You win the trophy. You win the trophy today, Hannah. You broke me.
Still, to begin with, those birds.
Take it. Take the trophy. Take all the medals.
I've had the trophy for quite some time, my friend.
Oh. I don't know how you keep manage to finding ways to break me, but God bless you for doing that.
Well.
All right, I think we can leave it off on that. My goodness.
Yeah.
This has been episode 20 of the General Geekery Podcast. Mm-hmm. I'm still thinking about it. Mm-hmm. You guys can follow us on social media on our Facebook page as well as on Instagram at Gen Geek Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at General Geekery. Hannah, where can they find you, my friend?
Well, as always, you can find me every Monday at 7:30 Central Time, adventuring with my party at twitch.tv/loadeddiceadventures. And you can follow me on Instagram at PythianLegume.
Yeah. And you guys can find me dying of laughter on the ground, but other than that, on social media, you can check me out on Twitter, Instagram, as well as on my twitch.tv page at RyuzakiMK7. This has been episode 20, once again, of the General Geekery Podcast. For Hannah Kubiak, as always, I'm Donald Kaczynski. Thank you, Alfred Hitchcock, for creating some amazing pieces of film that we love to geek over. Mm-hmm. And until next time, guys, always remember... Hannah, you want to say it this time?
Keep your geek on.
Yes. Always.
Clink, clink.
Enjoy. That was my last sip of coffee, too. Later, guys.